Hello everyone, my name is Keni Thacker, creator at Create Culture, the relevant element to achieve total equality. And I'm here with Cause Marketing, and I have these great people here with me on set today, and we're going to talk about a lot of things. We're going to talk about their past, their present, their future. But one thing we're definitely going to talk about today is Cause Marketing. So I'm going to let these great people introduce themselves, because you know what? They do it better than I would. So we're going to start with this handsome gentleman to the left of me.
Yes, hello everyone. I am Marquelle Turner-Gilchrist, and I am the creator and creative director of the new Stereotype. And the new Stereotype essentially is a fashion, photography, and film project that highlights and celebrates the many diverse layers of Black life in America through a fashion lens.
And I'm Susan McPherson, and I run a consultancy called McPherson Strategies, which focuses on the intersection between brands and social good. Some of our clients include Coca-Cola, JCPenney, the Tiffany & Co. Foundation, Blackbaud, and a variety of other organizations that are all pushing the envelope to do good in the world.
I'm Quincy Olatunde. I am the CEO and Chief Strategist for Digikea Digital. It's a digital marketing agency, and we work with clients and causes to help increase exposure, grow their business through a slew of productized services. So we pretty much help small and medium-sized businesses think like a brand and hustle like a startup. So that's what I do.
Okay, so what I'm gaining here right now is the common denominator here is a lot of good things. And obviously that's why you're here today. So I'm going to shuffle up the deck a little bit and first go to you, Susan, and ask you, how did you get started doing what you're doing right now?
Oh, I've had about 9 lives, maybe 11 at this point, since I'm by far the oldest person here. But I, for years, was involved in the corporate sector, but always did a lot of volunteer work on the side, raised money for charities and nonprofits, served on boards. And mid-2000s, I started to see how business could be a force for good in the world if pushed in that direction. If they started to see by doing so, they're going to get the best quality employees, they're going to get customers to buy their products, as well as they started to see that climate change was a reality. Thank goodness. And at that point in time, I really just started delving and diving into the whole space of corporate social responsibility and launched a consultancy almost 3 years ago. So that's that. Quick and succinct.
Quincy?
How did I start?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, traditionally I went to school for computer science, and I started to migrate more to the business side of things. And over the years, and having lived in different cultures and different, across the world, there's something that resonates well for me is like that global citizenship. And I believe that businesses, you can be profit for good. Profit is not the enemy. It's what you do with the money that you make and the lives that you touch. And I believe that, being able to find that marriage, really helps to push the boundaries. And thank God now, I was like a normally growing up, but now you have all the millennials, and they're very driven by that. They want to know what you're doing, in terms of cause-related outlook. So that's how I got started, and I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say my trajectory into this space is very innate in nature. I've always kind of had an affinity or a love for fashion, and whenever I came up with this idea, it was an interesting yet easy and seamless intersection to do something that I loved, as well as do something that made a difference or inspired many others along the way. So for me, after moving to New York in the latter part of 2014 and during the high summer of 2015, creating our first installment and seeing the reception that it received across social media, I felt that it was important to kind of continue that and move forward, and that's what brought me here today.
So if you could give me a 30-second pitch selling the new Stereotype, what would it be?
Yeah, that's very simple. Again, it's celebrating and highlighting the many diverse layers of Black life in America through fashion, film, and photography. Very simple, to the point, and inspiring people along the way in all of their various shades of melanin.
That's great. Susan, 9 lives, right? That's a lot. You probably have more. Right? But in those changing of all those different lives, when was that moment when you were like, this is what, maybe in this last life that you, and launching your own company, like when was it when you felt like, this is it, I'm in, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, in 2005, I went to Afghanistan. I was on the board of an organization called the Business Council for Peace, which was all about how business can be training women entrepreneurs in regions of post-conflict. Unfortunately, Afghanistan now, I wouldn't consider them in 2005 post-conflict, because they're still in conflict. However, it was incredible because the organization would galvanize women in business, take their skill set and transfer it to women in countries that, desperately needed help. And help may be a very broad term, but our term, the way we looked at it is more jobs equals less violence. And the more jobs these women could create in their businesses meant less likelihood. And it's a little like gang violence, right? If you bring business and entrepreneurship into inner cities where there's gang violence occurring, like there's more choices for young people. So that is continuing today. And going there and seeing the actual impact of our work and the impact of the businesses that were involved in helping the local businesses was inspirational. So I think that would be probably, if you were going to ask me for that one moment.
Quincy, you're in the digital space, right? So there's a lot of positive stuff about the digital space. There's a lot of negative stuff about the digital space.
Sure.
What's the biggest misconception people may have about what you do in the digital space?
That it's easy.
What do you tell them? What do you tell them when they think it's easy?
Everybody looks at, the great thing about technology is that it's everywhere. You have access to it. We've come from an age where things used to be extremely expensive in the space, and it's become cheaper with the advent of this technology. People are reaching out to each other more. Communication is becoming a lot easier, or what have you. And there is this, there's a lot of the marketplace is pretty much open to everyone. So you find people coming into this space. It's like the music industry of the 90s, where everybody and their mother had a record label on their desktop. The fact that technology is available and it's there, the fact that you are digitally serving doesn't mean that you are digitally informed. Let me go back. There are tools that are available for you to use, right? It's like a carpenter, right, with a hammer. He knows what to do with it. Now, he can build a building with it. If I go out and buy a hammer, I wouldn't know where to start. And that's what the digital space is like. You have social media, you have all these different tactics, and people have access to it, but it doesn't mean that you know how to solution and strategize and really create a movement with it. And that's where we come in. So when you are talking to a client or talking to people who are like, well, my 16-year-old son can do this. And I'm like, then why would you want to pay me more if your 16-year-old son can do it?
And if I can just add, the brands want everything to go viral. And
correct.
Only the smallest percentage. And
yes.
Luck has a lot to do with it, correct?
Well, no. No. You see, that's another misconception. Going viral is a lot of planning.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It's a lot of strategizing, a lot of ideation. For everyone that goes viral,
there's 1,000 that don't.
There's 1 million that don't.
But that's what I'm saying. But so many of them, you do tons of planning and they don't go viral.
Correct. So. Yes. You have that, but at the same time, it's like any business that you do. You have some data to back it up, some data to influence your direction, right? It doesn't mean that. The great thing about the space is that you can start a marketing campaign or you can start a development and go out and quickly test it. Back then, you couldn't do that. You had to do a lot of, outreach and campaign flight. And then after 6 months, you get your results back and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? But the advent of technology allows you to be able to get to the market quickly, get the response back quickly, and then pivot. And that is the trick right there. And so you still need that skill set to be able to do it well.
Plus, I think by also having all the analytics and everything like that, like pretty much at the tip of your fingers.
Well, people are becoming more analytical and starting to understand that data, it drives a lot of things. Like the people who knew it back then, You know, they were paying a lot of money to like Nielsen SoundScan and a lot of this big data hubs and data management, big data companies. Now, because the technology is lowering the barrier of entry, people are understanding it. But being data driven is one thing. Being data driven and being data informed are two different things. Being data driven means that you can only grow so much as the data allows you to, as it tells you, okay, you can have 5% growth, 10% growth. But you also have to being data informed is having a little bit of faith as well, that you believe in your drive, right? And that's why you can see the hockey stick growth of people like LinkedIn, the Facebooks of the world, you know, and a lot of them. So there's that balance you need to strike.
I just want to piggyback with you on this, talking about social media, since we just talked about it. How can nonprofits use social media to help them accomplish their mission or raise funds?
So I tend to think of, so let's dial this back. I tend to think of social media, I'll put it in the sense of a sales funnel. Right? A sales funnel, social media in the grand scheme of things is the top of the funnel activity in a sales funnel, which means that you have to optimize the rest of the funnel. Social media is just a distribution channel for you to reach out to people. Now, if the rest of the funnel of where you need to capture them and keep them motivated and keep them engaged, if that's lacking and that's not optimized, right, you are getting a lot of traffic that's not converting to engagement. And that's when we start to talk about vanity metrics. You know, likes, how many likes do you have? How many clicks do you have? But how many of that does that translate to engagement? How many of that does that translate to action? Does that inspire people to want to get out and do great things, you know, in this whole cost marketing space, right? And you can equate that same thing to sales, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. You know, so engagement metrics, and I'm glad people are coming to that realization now. That is more the kind of metric and the KPIs you want to start looking for, not just like, oh, I have 10 clicks or 20 million clicks and all that kind of stuff. It's irrelevant. So social media is great as a channel to do that outreach, right? But then there has to be, you know, something meaty behind it to be able to back that and support that whole paradigm. You know, and I think that is where the connection is lacking with a lot of these companies and a lot of these causes that, you know, is the only tactic that they're thinking about.
So I'm gonna come over to Brother Gilchrist Turner, ask you a question, because your movement is exactly what Quincy was talking about. It literally is viral. It's a continuing viral thing. I mean, you know, he takes a picture of him tying his shoes, there's like 1 million likes, literally. But what advice would you have for organizations that are trying to maybe pattern themselves after the new stereotype? What advice would you give them to align themselves to big brands or organizations?
Great question. Since we started the new stereotype, here in New York City, we've had 2 installments, or 3 installments, 2 men's installment and 1 women's installment that I was the creative director for. However, speaking of inspiration and action and having others follow suit, we've been able to inspire others across the world to also create their own version. So far there's been a version in London, Dallas, Chicago, just recently Charlotte, and then soon Detroit. And we're also working on an Atlanta and a DC version. So I would say that for people who are interested in kind of connecting with brands or replicating kind of what we're doing, is to first, I guess, think about this simple quote. There's a guy by the name of Tristan Walker who started a company called Devil. And I was on his site recently, and one of the post-it notes on his site said, "Take a simple idea and take it seriously." And I think a lot of people kind of miss that. So there are these great ideas, a lot of passion, a lot of creativity, but the execution is kind of missing. So when someone comes to me and say, "Hey, I would love to recreate this version. I want to do this in Paris. I want to do this in Portugal," I really dive into first the pillars of the project and also thinking about branding, tone, and voice. So it's not just getting together a bunch of dapper guys or beautiful women and taking a photo. There has to be a message behind it. And going back to your earlier point, fashion truly is the vegetable, but there's a message behind it. There has to be an intent. There has to be a purpose. And I've maintained that integrity and that authenticity. And I think that's why people kind of gravitate to the project, because they see that it's beyond the surface level. And this summer, one of the most exciting things that we're going to do is create our very first documentary. So we're traveling out of the country. We're doing a lot of different looks. We're doing a documentary truly to inspire other people. And I would say one of the first things I wanted to do that I haven't done was to create partnerships. And through doing that, what's important is first to be prepared. And second, to kind of know your goals and your deliverables so that you can give it to them very quickly in an easily consumable format. And the last, understand what your project has done. So knowing your digital footprint, understanding your purpose and goal, and being able to speak to that and speak to it in a succinct but yet effective way.
That's a great answer. Great answer, as always. Great answer. Susan.
Yes.
So my question for you is, if there was a measuring stick of the criteria nonprofits, or if there was a measuring stick nonprofits could use to align themselves with businesses for partnerships, what would that criteria be? So like if like a new Stereotype or like that I Am That Girl type of organization is looking to align themselves with a corporate partnership, like what criteria should those organizations already have before they step into that room?
You're looking at it from the nonprofit side, not the corporate side, because they're both looking at it from different perspectives. And I think maybe just a little bit of history might be good here. For many years, nonprofits would literally go to a corporation and ask for money. And typically it would be the purview of a white male CEO that may or may not have the passion about that particular cause. And if he did, he might write a check. Or there might be a golf tournament and the monies raised went to the particular nonprofit or charity. That day has very much changed. And both the corporate or the benefactor is very much in tune with trying to get as much reputational uplift as well as new sales from partnering with a nonprofit. So to be successful, the missions of both have to be somewhat aligned. So oftentimes I will say to a nonprofit, number one, it is not what the for-profit can do for you, it is what you can do for the for the for-profit. So just turn it all around. What skills do you bring the for-profit that they don't have on their own? What marketplaces can you bring to the for-profit that perhaps they haven't been able to penetrate, or new demographic or new geographical region? What social creds can you bring? Maybe the for-profit is just terrible at social media, and maybe the nonprofit has a tremendous penetration on one of the many platforms. Maybe they're incredible experts at Snapchat. So what I think the nonprofit must do is do a deep dive to find out all the ways they can benefit the for-profit, but always in hindsight keeping in mind, or keeping the back of their minds, how do they align? Because you don't want to have a situation where it doesn't seem authentic, and puts the for-profit and yourselves in a kind of a funky position. So hopefully that would be.
And we could make a book out of this whole
conversation. We could make a book out of it.
I think that needs to be the follow-up work.
You asked him about how nonprofits can be doing a better job on social. I have a 6-part webinar series just on that. So we'd be here till tomorrow, which we won't do that.
So this is just another question I'm going to throw out there, but I definitely want to start with Susan. What do you think is next for cause marketing / purpose-driven marketing? What do you think's next?
No, I think more technology. I think much more precise measurement before engaging in I don't mean measurement in the sense of how are we going to do this, but thinking ahead to metrics so that when you plan the campaign that you're putting together with your partners, you can go ahead and pivot if you don't meet those goals. I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation with new technologies that perhaps in the past people were maybe a little trepidatious to. We're seeing a lot of people playing with Periscope and Snapchat because, again, they want to reach the younger demographics that may or may not be on the traditional. It's so funny to say traditional because it's only like 10 years old, but like Facebook and LinkedIn and to a certain extent Twitter. So I think there's going to be much more conscious planning before starting, which I think we'll all benefit from.
To piggyback on that, I would say 2 words: conscious people approaching things, people approaching what they buy, what they get into, what they fill their space with in a very conscious way. It's no longer about you telling me to support this cause. It's how does that enrich me as a human being? What's the experience I'm getting out of it? Whether directly or indirectly on how I see it affects you. How it brings a smile to your face, right? So it's gonna be a conscious movement. And that's what I see in this space. Whether it's technology is affording you that. Technology is going to be at the base of it, but that's what's going to be.
There's a really interesting platform called Positive Luxury that is based in London. And what it essentially does is it shines a light on luxury brands that are pushing the envelope and actually becoming sustainable, but not chastising them for what they're not doing, but instead showcasing what they are doing.
Yeah.
So it's something you should definitely check out, and it aligns with exactly what you're saying, that people, when they buy something, and certainly something that they're going to keep for a long time, because luxury brands are essentially, I think, the first level of sustainability. You buy an Hermes scarf, that's going to last you, and you're going to hold on to it, unlike fast fashion. But what it does is it talks about how. So check it out.
Yes, I will. Positive Luxury.
All right. So one of the many famous questions that I always ask when I'm interviewing people is, this is going to be viewed by a lot of people, God willing, and they will see it. And there's going to be some younger people, some people even younger than Marquelle, believe it or not. And they're going to be viewing this and they're going to think, wow, I want to do what Susan does. I want to do what Quincy does. I want to do what Marquelle's doing. What do you say to that young, gifted individual that wants to get into your line of work?
Always push. Always push.
I would say be authentic and be sincere. Whenever we first started doing this project, it was, and today it's still very, very grassroots. It doesn't require a lot of money. It's very natural. It's very organic. But people respond to what we're doing and what some of the other people are doing because it's authentic. It's sincere. We're not selling anything. We're not selling a product. We're truly just trying to celebrate life. So I believe that if you wanted to do something in this space, make sure you're sincere about that cause. Make sure that it's authentic, it's personal to you, that you love it, that you're passionate about it, and it's not just something to do, but you truly care about it, and it's sincere, and I think people will notice the difference. I think they'll notice the difference.
I would say, first of all, nurture your network, starting from the get-go. That will pay back in dividends. And don't nurture the network just to get ahead. Nurture the network because it is a wonderful thing to do. And you'll find that people that you meet are fascinating, and they'll lead to other fascinating people. And secondly, show appreciation and always say thank you, even if it is 3 times the amount of what someone did for you. Because those types of things people remember, and especially in our space where we're all about doing social good, it's amazing that sometimes doesn't happen, and it should.
And if you are not good at relationship building, find somebody who is. I mean, it hire around your weakness, align yourself around your weakness and find people who are moving in the same direction as you, because it's very, very important, because you will need that support. There are times where I just want to give up. I'm like, I'm done. And it's just like that fear, and I guess for me, is fear of not living up to my potential that keeps me pushing. Because I think like the investment that's made in me by somebody else, and I'm going, I can't not move, and it's not necessarily monetary value. Like there's so many things that you acquire along the way. That's not just about money. That's just the only way you measure success. Like how many lives are you touching? Who are you inspiring? Who did you help across the street? Things like that. I think goes a long way, and it just I'm gonna shut up now.
no need to. So we've covered a lot in this amount of time that we've been together. So I just want to wrap this up, because basically what we're going to do now is we're going to create a soundtrack to tonight, right? So if we were going to create a soundtrack to tonight's interview, what song would you use that talks about that basically speaks to your life right now? So like, what song would that be?
Okay, I'll go first.
Oh man. I would say it's what we do with the new Stereotype. I'm speaking from the lens of the project. It's very, it's very subtle. However, I think the message shows us living our lives as we continue to do these installments in crescendo. So we're getting louder and louder and louder and a bit more bold. So I would say the song for this very moment would be James Brown, Black and Proud.
All right.
For me, I feel so. Before this new agency that we have and going strong the last couple of years, I was a partner in another one that we rebranded to this, and that went on for about 6 years. And before that, had other products that I had done and sold and what have you. So for me, being an immigrant, mostly wherever I go, there's so many obstacles that you have to think about, not just only business, but also economically, politically, like all these things that are happening with all the political movement, all the immigration and whatever have you. So it's very near and dear to my heart. So it's not just about just business and making money. It's about, that whole global citizenship. So I feel, for me, waking up every day and being able to think and listen to Eye of the Tiger, that's one that, and if the millennials that don't know that,
I know that.
the millennials that don't know that, I would say, probably DMX, Ain't No Way, because I wake up every day with that. She's laughing now because I was texting her all that stuff yesterday. That was for you. That was for you, Jen.
There's a song in the play Hamilton, and it is sung by the King George singing to the colonies. And his, if I remember the title, it's "You'll Be Back." And he talks about how, and it's wisdom because he's looking ahead and talking about, you're going to have all kinds of issues now that you're free, and you're going to now you get to make government, which isn't as easy as being led, etc. And it basically what it's doing is it's projecting out to today's modern times and how we are in a messed up situation, given what's happening in the current election cycle, etc.,
yes.
As well as what's happening with immigration and putting up walls and all the things that those of us in this world that we're talking about is all about breaking down walls and being inclusive and being, pulling together diversity to actually affect positive change. So I would say that song, "You'll Be Back," is something I think about a lot.
All right, well, that's the soundtrack I would listen to, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank all of you for being here and sharing your time with us here at Cause Marketing. My name is Keni Thacker, and we'll see you all on the next episode.